there's so much to know when illustrating a children's book. It's hard to remember everything to tell everybody. This publisher contacted me about creating the art for this book in 2013. The way that they work is they invite several different illustrators to make sample characters, a single page, and then they pick the illustrator they want to work with for that book. I started on this story 2 years ago, doing the character color sketch for them to decide to invite me to be the illustrator. First off, I'll tell you a little bit about the story. What happens to a classroom after there's a flood and the children come back to school and all of their books have been destroyed? They say, what are we going to do for circle time? The teacher says, I'll tell you a story, and the kids get all excited about the story that she tells them. Each child tells their own story. At the end of the book, the teacher helps them take the stories that they told during circle time and create books so that their bookshelf isn't empty anymore. And you see on the screen right now is my initial thumbnails, and this is basically 2 8.5 by 11 pages, so this is not very big. I would say it's about business card size for each of the spreads. And you can see where it says FPO. That was the initial illustration I sent the publisher for them to decide to have me illustrate the book. There are 7 children and the teacher. I had to make sure that I kept those characters consistent throughout the book. So it was a lot of work with character consistency in this book because there are so many characters. I gave each child its own personality, and they're not named in the text. The text is only about 100 words long. So I gave each child a name so I could give them a personality, and I interviewed them and I asked them what they wanted to wear and who they are and all of that. We're going to talk about this thumbnail right here, the third down on the left. I will talk about how I did that particular one as well as the process for the entire book. So the first thing I do is I do a half-size pencil sketch. A lot of the time I'm doing this, I'm thinking about how I'm organizing the information so that the page turn is obvious. Look at the pile of fish here. You see they go in a spiral. Another thing that, because it's a bilingual picture book, I have to have a space for both the English and the Spanish. What I do is the publisher told me what font and size and leading she was using, and I pasted that into my little sheets. And if you can see, I have blue lines to keep me the gutters and everything. And I start with the half-page sketches, half-page pencil sketches, and I get my ideas down as close as I can to what was in my head. But if you look at the thumbnail here, it changed a whole lot. I still have the bottom of the glass bottom boat, but I really, really gave a lot of emphasis to all of those fish because the text for this page, for this spread, is on Tuesday, our class rode in a glass boat and saw all the fish in the ocean. So it's like, okay, well, we have to see all those fish. I counted once. There's 139 fish. Part of the deliverables on this book had to be vignettes for each of the spreads to separate the English from the Spanish. And you can see in my sketch here, I put this little fish in, which is the same fish as over here. And it separates the English from the Spanish. And that's on every spread. There's separation of the English from the Spanish. And once my initial thoughts are down, I move on to a full-size pencil sketch. And you can see from this one to that one, I made more changes. I added more fish, beefed up the turtle's anatomy, and I added furniture into the classroom. I had the children's imagination on one part of a spread, and then I had the classroom on the other. I wanted to bring that fantasy, magical feeling into the book. I do all of my inking in Illustrator for two reasons. One is it takes off pressure of being perfect when I start putting paint down, because sometimes with watercolor you make a mistake and you can't fix it. And I was always terribly worried when I was doing this by pencil that I would have to start over from scratch. Now that I'm doing the inking in the computer, I'm less worried about making a mistake. I'm still worried about making a mistake, but I'm less worried because I know I can just print out the lines again onto a new piece of watercolor paper in case something goes wrong. About a third of the time something does, and I have to start over. I mean, it's part of the process. So this is printed out at 150% of size. The size of this book is 8.5 by 11, which would be 11/17 spreads. So my spreads were 13.5 by 19, I think that was the size. I don't remember exactly, but somewhere close to that. And I do this so that my details don't get lost when it gets printed. It took me about a day to print out all 27 pieces, and they use an interior image for the cover, so the art that I printed out did not include cover art. So once everything's printed out, I start painting the large areas, and you can see the creamy yellow of the school walls and the carpet and floor, sort of a reddish tan. And I painted every single spread to make sure that the color matched throughout the book before I moved on to individual characters. And you can see in this one, I'm painting the boy in the overalls. And here he is again. And there he is again. You can't really see there. This is a printout of my original painting, and you can see the boy here. The publisher had comments. They wanted him to wear glasses, and they had me change the shape of his eyes. So everything changes continuously. And you can see this girl, and this girl is the same girl as in the painting with the fish. And this is what the painting with the fish looked like when I was done painting it. And you can see I put a lot of color into those fish. I don't think there's actually a sea turtle that color, but I had fun with it because it's imagination, and I wanted to show that it was imagination. Everything gets scanned in and sent to the publisher, and there's still more changes. I had a couple of changes after they approved color. Mainly it was just I got a tense wrong on one of my Spanish signs. There's a couple of Spanish signs in the book. So I had to change the tense on one of the signs. And then I didn't hear anything from them for months and months and months. It was nearly a year before I got my author copies. And this is my box of author copies, which I got in April. The book came out in May. And I finished the art and I delivered it in mid-May of 2015. So I've been waiting almost a year to see what my art looked like on the book. Here is what the painting looks like in the books.